Hello and welcome to Safety Tavern's video on scaffolding. First, let's take a look at what happens when it goes wrong. Did y'all notice something in all of those videos? There's one thing that they all had in common. The wind. Wind rips scaffolding out of the sky. Whenever you tarp up scaffolding, right? Whenever you put that cloth fabric, and don't get me wrong, GCs are putting up that cloth fabric to help protect. They're trying to keep debris from falling off the scaffolding and hitting the people below, the public below. So it's meant for protection, but it also creates this big giant boat sail, and it's ripping these scaffoldings out of the air. So if you're on a scaffolding that is tarped, you need to have a whole lot higher level of awareness of what you're doing. Competent people, you need to quadruple your efforts to inspect and don't just trust the GC. Inspect what you're doing. Make sure that the scaffolding is good for your people to get onto that scaffolding. Again, you're the employer, not the GC. You're the employer. If you're a GC, you need to make absolute sure that you're using a very good company, a very reputable company that's installing scaffolding. Now, I throw this video in not so much so that way you can be a certified scaffolding builder. That's not at all what this is for. This is so that way if you do have the parts and you are going to get onto a what's commonly called a baker scaffold, if you are going to get on one, understand this is how it gets put together. Now, the person in this video does arguably violate scaffolding regulations on fall protection. Again, that's arguable. Just understand, I wanted you to, the reason this video is in there is I wanted you to see how they click together. Each one will be different. Manufacturer recommendations is the number one thing. That build manual for how to build that scaffolding, and they are online. That is the highest priority for building scaffolding, is talk to the manufacturer, whether you're reading the book or you have the manual right there in front of you, or you have to look online, or give them a call. That's how you build scaffolding safely. A mixture of that, and does your company authorize you to build scaffolding? That's the big one. Talk to the competent person for your company for scaffolding, and they'll lay you out straight. Let's change gears and get to some of the rules and regulations. Mobile scaffolding. Do not move while occupied unless specifically designed for such movement. Before moving, inspect for pits, holes, and obstructions on the floor, and push the base on or near the bottom when moving. So don't push up here, push down here. That way you don't tip it over. Caster wheels must be locked to prevent movement of scaffold when it's stationary. So when you're going to move it, unlock the wheels, move it, and then lock them all back down. All 4 wheels. Unless it has more, lock all the wheels back down. Mobile towers are lightweight with fast assembly and dismantling, usually needing no special tools. They're incredibly versatile and are ideal for jobs which are going to take just a few hours, such as residential or commercial painting and general maintenance work. When used properly, they are safe and usually a lot safer than trying to work from a ladder, obviously because they give you a platform to walk on. Scaffold casters and wheels shall be locked with positive wheel and swivel locks or equivalent means to prevent movement of the scaffold while the scaffold is used in a stationary manner. Where leveling of the scaffold is necessary, screw jacks or equivalent means shall be used. Caster stems and wheel stems shall be pinned or otherwise secured in scaffolding legs or adjustment screws. Manual force used to move the scaffolding shall be applied as close to the base as practicable, but not more than 5 feet above the supporting surface. Power systems used to propel mobile scaffolds shall be designed for such use. Forklifts, trucks, similar motor vehicles, or add-on motors shall not be used to propel scaffolds unless the scaffold is designed for such propulsion systems. Scaffolds shall always be stabilized to prevent tipping during movement. Now, I do not train my companies to move scaffolding with employees on it. I tell them always come down, but feel free to take a picture here of this slide if that is something that your company allows you to do and you're going to do that. In my experience and the situations that I've been put in, I've never seen a place where it was safer just to move the scaffolding with an employee on it. So I tell my people, come down, move the scaffolding, get back up. Erect and dismantle all scaffolding according to the manufacturer's instructions and competent person's direction. Capacity must be 4 times the intended load, must have stable footings, including a base plate, screw jacks, and mud seals. Platforms must be at least 18 inches wide, except for a ladder jack, pump jack, top plate, or roof brackets. Those can be 12 inches wide. The front edge of all platforms must be within 14 inches of the face of the work. Now, I'll show you a picture where I explain this better, but there are some exceptions as well, and that's 3 inches for an outrigger scaffolding and 18 inches for plastering and lathering operations. Those people have exceptions, but for most scaffolding, it must be 14 inches or less to the face of work. Scaffolding must be capable of supporting its own weight and at least 4 times the expected load. This includes workers, equipment, tools, materials, anything and everything that's on those legs of the scaffold, 4 times the expected load. Some quick math here, 400 pounds of workers, that's 2 people, 100 pounds of tools, plus 100 pounds of materials, that's 600 pounds, times 4, the intended load, that equals 2,400 pounds or a small car. Base plate and mud seals, this is wrong. We never land them directly on the dirt. This is better. See how it's got the rock there and then you can land the wood? That way it receives the leg and it's not going to sink in. The more weight you have on these legs, the more stable this needs to be. This is unacceptable. Masonry blocks and bricks are not acceptable as scaffolding bases. Anytime you see this, do not get on the scaffolding. Each platform on all working levels must be fully planked and secured to prevent movement. No more than 1 inch space between decking platform units and upright supports. Wood scaffolding planks must be a nominal 2 inches by 10 inches and must be scaffolding grade planks or equivalent. So if you're climbing up on the scaffolding and you see Home Depot lumber, no go. It must be scaffolding grade plank. And it must be in good condition. Planks with visible defects must not be used. Do not use objects such as ladders, boxes, barrels on top of scaffolding planks to increase height. Planks extend 6 inches past supports are secured. Do not paint platforms. Only exception to this is edges may be covered or marked for identification, and scaffolds must be fully braced. Remember I told you I'd show you a picture of the 14 inches to the face? That is from the edge of the work to where the person's foot is, from this piece of wood where they can step. 14 inches or less. Planks should extend at least 6 inches past the support. So, the edge of this piece of wood has to be at least 6 inches from the last base where it landed. Or secure. Cleating is a popular form of securing it. I've also seen them wrap tie wire around it. There's many different ways to secure. Securing is all about keeping the plank from sliding off the scaffolding. When it says fully braced, it's talking about these cross members right here. Designated competent person, designated by the employer, has the knowledge and experience required to identify existing and predictable hazards, has authority to eliminate unsafe working conditions, and has the authority to stop work if unsafe conditions exist. The competent person shall train employees who erect, dismantle, move, or alter scaffolds, which this training is not training anybody to build scaffolding. They will also determine if it is safe for employees to work on or from a scaffold during storms or high winds, and inspect scaffolds and scaffolding components for visible defects before each work shift. Scaffolding access. Ladders needed if access more than 2 foot high. Don't climb cross braces, and place ladders securely. Ladders must be positioned so they will not tip the scaffold. Access to or from another surface, such as a window, can only be used when the scaffolding is not more than 14 inches horizontally and not more than 24 inches vertically from the other surface. Portable ladders must be secured to prevent displacement and extend at least 3 feet above the landing to provide a handhold. And this is an attachable access ladder versus a portable ladder like we just talked about. The other way to access would be a stairwell. Scaffolding 10 feet or higher must have some means of fall protection, guardrails, or a personal fall arrest system. Top rails must be installed between 38 inches and 45 inches high. Mid rails halfway between the top rail and the platform. Cross bracing is okay as guardrails if the center point is between 20 inches and 30 inches for mid rail, and 38 inches and 45 inches for the top rail. Top rails must be rated at 200 pounds of force, and mid rails must be rated at 150 pounds of force in any direction. Erection and dismantling. Fall protection should be used when feasible. When it does not create a greater hazard, competent person determines feasibility and safety of providing fall protection. Again, this video is not training anybody to build or break down scaffolding, thus this shouldn't be an issue. Anyone working on or around the scaffold must wear a hard hat. Workers on or below scaffolds must be protected from falling objects by toe boards, mesh, screens, or equivalent measures. This is an example of where they took a plank and they just used it to make a makeshift toe board, which is okay. All employees must be trained prior to working on scaffolds. Qualified person must conduct a training and include the following: electrical hazards, fall protection, falling object protection, proper use, material handling, and load carrying capacities. This is an example of a fabricated frame scaffold. Must have guardrails installed, must use cross bracing, use of uplift pins. They can't just throw random bolts in here. They've got to be whatever the manufacturer designed to be in these holes is what goes in these holes. Supported scaffolds with a height to base width, including the outrigger supports if they're used, ratio of more than 4:1 must be restrained from tipping by guying, tying, bracing, or equivalent means. The most common scaffolding hazards are no guardrails on the scaffolds, defective planks or inadequate planking, unsafe access to scaffolding, cross bracing not adequate, inadequate footings, and bridges on scaffolds, meaning you're going from one scaffold to the next, and so that's that bridging going from A to B. This is OSHA's injuries from scaffolding. 1 is killed, 2 are injured when a scaffolding collapse. A driver is killed when scaffolding pole collapses. That means the dude wasn't even on the scaffold. He was just an innocent bystander and got hit by a piece. Head trauma when scaffolding collapse. Falls into the water after a scaffolding failed and drowns. 2 employees are injured when a scaffolding collapses. Employee receives unspecified injuries in a fall from the scaffolding. Fractures back in a fall from scaffolding. Unspecified back injuries. Killed when scaffolding platform collapses. Fractured ribs and clavicle in fall from the ladders, assuming attached to a scaffolding. Multiple injuries from collapsing scaffolding. Multiple fractures. And then down here, employee is killed when 10-foot scaffolding falls over. The whole thing fell over. Moral of the story is, when scaffolding goes wrong, it's not just the people on it that can get hurt, but it's anybody in the vicinity can get hurt. And if you're getting hurt from this, it's going to be a bad hurt. Chances are you ain't going to just walk this one off. So let's take a look at some people that have entered into the stupid zone. Fail, 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 fail. All of this is stupid. This one's a little better, but let's take a look. Down here, I've got unprotected rebar. What happens if somebody falls in? We want this stuff to be protected to where nobody gets impaled. Next, look at the pattern here versus look at the pattern here. Does it look like they're just throwing out whatever kind of planking they want? They cannot just mix match whatever parts they want from whatever scaffolding. One manufacturer, one set of scaffolding, that's the way it works. It looks like they're just throwing whatever parts they want onto this scaffold. I've got scrap wire just sitting there, and we never work directly above or below anyone else. The only exception to this is when y'all are on the same team, specifically when you're pulling wire or you're handing materials up. That's okay because you're on the same team doing the same thing. You've got a gap back here in the planking that's larger than 1 inch. And over here, that looks bigger than 1 inch as well. This mid and lower rail section do not look like they're actually secured here, which looks loose. But overall, that doesn't even look like it hits that 38 inch to 45 inch target zone. Granted, we are at an awkward angle looking at this, so I would need to pull out my tape measure, but my hunch is this is no good. Does anyone think these are actually scaffolding grade planks? Or does this look like the masonry guys just threw together a scaffold? This is clearly overloading a scaffolding. If this happens, stay off and stay out of the area. Bamboo scaffolding is not approved in the US. Stay off this. Hard hats, anybody? And also, how did he get up there? What did he climb on? And then the next one is, are they moving it with him up there? Or are they stabilizing it? Either way, this is all no-go. If you cannot see the feet of the scaffold, you cannot make a judgment whether they're secured correctly. Thus, stay off the scaffolding. No. Everything about this is no. This human being is crazy. You need some fall protection. And then, look at all the different colors of all that planking. Does anyone think that that's actually scaffolding planking? Or is this dude just grabbing any kind of lumber and chunking it up there? That is definitely not 6 inches extended out. He is trying to gain height on the platform, which is again another no-no. We never use ladders on top of scaffolding. Absolutely no form of fall protection, fall prevention. There are more issues, but that's enough to shut this scaffolding down. And finally, my favorite one. Cable tray is not designed to be used that way. What is the load rating of this cable tray? This scissor lift is holding up structure in which the handrails are only designed for 200 pounds of downward force. This handrail set over here is holding up 2 human beings plus a cable tray, not designed to be used as a scaffold, and that's why it's under the scaffolding section. No fall protection, fall prevention of any kind while they're up there. And on top of it, scissor lift chain uninstalled, scissor lift chain uninstalled, which are both violations of manufacturer's recommendations, and nobody has a hard hat on. Everyone gets fired. If you have any questions regarding scaffolding on your job site, please talk to the competent person for your company that's in charge of you in regards to scaffolding. I hope this video finds you well, and I'll see you in the next one.